passe l'artiste. Super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De er i semifinale igjen!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Uninformed Handball Hours Morning Club. It's Chris O'Reilly here, and usually these podcasts are for our Patreon subscribers only. But every now and then, we throw one of them out into the wild to give everyone a taste of what we do on Patreon with the bonus content. And because of the reaction that this story is getting, we thought it would be worth sharing this for free with everyone as well. And this one is all about Cameroonian players disappearing from the national team, both before the World Championship this year and also a bunch of players who left during the World Championship 2 years ago. The players who were in the squad before this World Championship, Benedicta Manga Ambassa and Mariana Batamag, were included in the squad. They played some test matches in Cannes in France. Their last test match against Senegal on the 26th of November, they played. But by the time they played their opening match of the World Championship against Montenegro on the 30th of November, neither were in the squad, neither were accounted for, and Cameroon ended up playing that game and every game so far with 14 players. 2 years ago, 5 players ended up leaving during the championship. Jasmine Yotuchum, Clarissa Madufang, Michelle Ekobena, and Emily Mvoa all were part of the squad and left at the same time. And a 5th player then, a couple of days later, Giselle Nkolo, also departed. I wrote an article for Go Handball, which is the new English language site run by Handbollskanalen, a really popular and fantastic website in Sweden. And the story was picked up in a lot of different places throughout Sweden and in other countries as well, on newspapers and websites before Cameroon faced Sweden in the first game of the main round. This Cameroonian team has just made history by reaching the main round of the World Championship for the first time. But there is this underlying story which gives a real sad element to what is happening to these players and what the conditions they have to deal with while they try to compete with the world's best. And in order to get a bit of context on this story and to get some insight, I managed to get in touch with a Cameroonian freelance journalist, Leocadia Bongben, who has been working on women's sports for a number of years. Once upon a time, she was the press officer for the Cameroonian women's football team and has been following this team throughout the years as well. And a big thanks to Sister Speak, an organization which promotes women's voices and stories in Cameroon, who I got in touch with, and they brought me together with Leocadia Bongben straight away. So thank you to them, and thank you to Leocadia for this chat. Thank you so much for agreeing to chat as well. Sister Speak and yourself have been very quick to be in touch about it, and I think it's a really interesting topic. And I felt the only way to really get some perspective on this would be from people and women in Cameroon who have a real idea about what is going on. So it's really nice to get some perspective from you. So I appreciate that. Okay, so we could dive into it, Bongben. And this Cameroon side are making history in Sweden at the moment. They've just qualified for the main round of a World Championship, but with what seems like a huge caveat in the fact they only have 14 players there. And it's something which already 2 years ago came to my attention while I was in Spain at the World Championship, when 4 players and then seemingly a 5th player had left the squad. And even though I haven't seen any specific reports on it this time, it seems like something similar has happened in the preparation for this event. So maybe you can give me a bit of your insight into that.
Yeah, I've been following this team since I follow a lot of women's sports. And I know they've been in Caen in France. So, but I started seeing reports that two players had disappeared. The president spoke about it and said they've been, they tried to let Cameroonians in France, keep an eye on the team, but it wasn't their fault. These two actually disappeared with their things. It means at least it's not as if somebody kidnapped them.
Yes.
They left on their own. But this is not something new. For us in Cameroon, it's not new because, as you said, in 2021, four disappeared with an Iranian at that time, and then another one disappeared after that. It's not. Then in 2018, there were around 10 who disappeared. And it's not specific to handball. When you look at our boxers, they equally disappeared in 2018. I think, was it 2012 or somewhere around the London Olympic? Yes. So it's not new. And then for us, we hardly report it because we feel it's maybe an opportunity for them to get somewhere where they are valued. Because our conditions here in Cameroon are actually not the best. Not that I'm not encouraging people to run away. They can actually find a better way of getting out there. But the conditions here are not very favorable. And then when you look at it from the side of women, you find out that there's still this disparity in the pay package. If women go to a competition like this, when they come back, what is given to them, it's nothing that can actually take them anywhere. So I think it's generally that if Cameroon can ameliorate its condition for sportsmen and women, they will better stay at home. But once they see that they can have a better opportunity out there, I think they will all go. But I know that for the women's national team, why you don't, the football team, why you don't see them a lot go away, it's because football is still valued here in Cameroon, even though the pay packet is still different from what the men get. But if a player comes back and can buy a car and build a house from a competition like the World Cup in Canada in 2015, at least you won't see them leaving the country that much. But with handball, it's a different case, and it's very bad because when you see the kind of stipends they are given, it's not encouraged.
What really stood out for me in looking into this, and you mentioned 2018 as well, I think that was the Commonwealth Games, right, in Gold Coast. And there's always some reports on these athletes who have disappeared shortly afterwards, but then it seems like it's just accepted and people move on with their lives. There isn't much of a search going on for them. And that I wonder in Cameroon, particularly on the women's side, this kind of reality of players disappearing and of course looking for a better life for themselves, is it a case of then, okay, we try not to say too much about it because we don't want to get them in trouble, or that it's almost better for them that if they go under the radar somewhat and disappear?
We'll report about this like maybe it has just happened, but there is no follow-up in seeing really what happened after that. It goes like it's a normal thing. But I also think that the host country where these players disappear, they are able to even track them down better than us.
Yeah.
But they don't. I remember that the boxers in London, they integrated some clubs. The BBC talked to me, they interviewed me about this, if I knew this player. They actually integrated some clubs, And that was the end of the story. It's like, and at the end of the day, they change nationality. They become British boxers or Spanish boxers. And it's a two-way thing.
Yeah.
If they disappear and there's no club to host them, either they get into something else or they maybe they may come back home. But when they disappear, they get a host, they get a club, and they continue from there. So it's not as if here we'll report it, but then there's nothing you can do like hyping it because you cannot go and bring them back. The government is not even keen about, their conditions here. It's something, because if you look at somebody who trains every day for less than, I can say maybe $10, you cannot be training for $10 every day. At the end of the day, how will you make your life? And then if you are off training, if there's no competition in view, you are on your own. So that's the way it is.
It seems like then that within a team, then if a number of players have disappeared, that everyone would understand why this is happening and maybe do their best to accommodate it as well. The teammates within the, let's say in this case, the Cameroon women's handball team, the 4 players that went 2 years ago, that even though it leaves the players that are remaining in a trickier situation, but they're still, they would fully understand why they're doing it and would support their teammates who have decided to make this life-altering decision.
I think they equally understand their teammates. It's that sometimes, maybe for some people, it's not their dream, like to go to another country. But for those who really feel like, getting out there, changing their situation is something, their teammates will always, even though at that particular time, I think it's difficult to even tell your teammate that you are going to leave. Those who leave are those who have planned this quietly before and won't tell their teammates. Even though when the teammates hear this, they'll certainly just support them because there's nothing they can do. If they had their way, I'm sure they will equally leave. But if a whole team would go somewhere and leave, it's equally bad for the image of the country.
Yeah. And do you think there are other things lying behind these decisions as well? I mean, you gave us a little bit of an insight into how it is for a handball athlete in Cameroon, and it doesn't sound particularly appealing in the first place, but is just trying to make a better life for themselves the key reason behind this?
I think it's key because even when you look outside the sport, generally employment in Cameroon is not easy. To get employment is not easy. So jobs are scarce. And for younger persons, it's difficult in such a situation because when you even look at it, if you decide to start a small job, the pay is not even, I can say the least payment for an ordinary Cameroonian is like $70. Even as a young person, I don't see what somebody would do with $70 a month. Generally, the conditions are not good. And that is why you see most of them, if they are not trying to go out by sea, like you hear many die, many are taken back home, or many are in a camp somewhere, it is because the general conditions in the country are not very favorable. There's no employment, and even when you get employed, the payment is not encouraging. So they now find how to move out of the country.
Do you see these things are happening might have an impact on Cameroon having presence at the international stage in a sport like handball in the future? There's one side of it, which of course is that they're losing many of their best athletes who now for a couple of championships in a row have, for their reasons, left. But of course that has an immediate impact on the ability of the team to perform as they would hope to. But do you think that there's also a side to it where maybe in Cameroon the authorities would try to clamp down on a national team going abroad, or is that just not a consideration for them?
I don't think that is a consideration, like stopping a team from taking part in a competition But I think what they normally do is once they get somewhere, they keep their passports. And in that sense, there's no freedom again. You're like a prisoner. It's part of the measures to make sure the team comes back to Cameroon. For me, I would love to see a better conditions for the athletes. Because if you give them social security, I don't think they will want to be running away every time. So instead of like stopping them from taking part in a competition, if you say, okay, those who take part in this competition, you have this social security, you have a stipend every month, I don't think somebody will leave the comfort of his home to go and start struggling anew somewhere else. So it's that sometimes the political will is not there. The government wants these athletes to bring back the trophies, but they are not doing what they are supposed to do to make sure the athletes are, financially stable.
From what we've seen at this championship, the talent is certainly there in the team to maybe not go and win a world championship, and that is in a sport like this a long way from reality. But we're seeing not just in Cameroon but throughout the African sides of this championship some very impressive performances. There's, I think, going to be a special occasion in a few days' time when we see Cameroon take on Senegal at a main round of a championship like this. Will be quite special. Also Angola, who are regular contenders at this level. Yeah, it feels like the solution you suggested there in terms of providing regular social security and a stipend for these players is the way to go. Do you think it's something that realistically could change with some positive performances like this? Might that get the government to wake up a little bit?
I think it will take time for the government to wake up. But I think that Cameroonian athletes are really determined. The talent is there. When it comes to sports in Cameroon, the talent is there. It's just that the facilities are not there. And when we look at how this is the first time Cameroon is coming out of the preliminary stage, which is really great. Maybe the federation can do something, but at some point, government doesn't have the finances at this level to really encourage these players. And if there was something to have been done, if you say, okay, when the men go out, they have this amount, let the women to also have this. I think it will encourage these girls, because most times it's the women's sport that is taking center stage, and when the men are not there, but they don't have that kind of treatment. Notwithstanding, you still find out that mentally they are ready to give in their best. So if Cameroon can even reach the quarterfinals, is good, you see. But it will not significantly, push the authorities to like do something significant. I think I've said it all. The sport in Cameroon, there's talent. On the women's side, they really try their best, but it's left for the authorities to do their best for the women to thrive. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. It's really interesting. And hopefully we can help to spread some awareness as well of the need for continued or more support, not continued, some support for Cameroonian women's athletes.
Telling you, thank you. Bye-bye.
So thanks again to Leocadia Bongben. Really fascinating stuff. And this story, I think, speaks for itself. Cameroon played their opening game of the main round last night. They were comprehensively beaten by Sweden 37-13. But the fact that they've reached this stage of the competition is already a huge achievement in itself. And when you hear about the conditions and the reality that this team has to face, the results in the court are almost secondary. But really nice insight from Leocadia Bongben. My thanks to her and to Sister Speak again. And thank you for listening as well. And if you enjoyed this morning club and feel like you want a little more content, including these short podcasts every week, and you want to support the Uninformed Handball Hour in the work we're doing, well, you can do that on Patreon. There's many different levels to get involved in and support the podcast. A bunch more people have joined in the last few days, which is really nice to see as we cover this Women's Handball World Championship in more depth. We'll give them a shout out in the next full podcast. But until then, everyone, thank you and goodbye.